you'll have to respond to that. So, hi, my name is Rory Canterbury. I'm your host today on Archery Talk 101, and we have Paul on the line with us, and we're going to talk about archery with him. He's been in archery for a while, and I'm sure he's going to have some really cool stories. Just to let you know, you can watch the podcast in the Facebook group Archery Talk 101, as well as on my YouTube channel, Learn to Fix It Yourself. And then the podcast, the audio, you can listen to on Spotify and wherever podcasts are broadcast out, as well as on audible.com. So, Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be on.
Yeah, it's always fun talking to archers all over the world. How about if you introduce yourself and let us know where you're at?
Hi, my name's Paul Newton. I'm in southern Michigan.
Cool. So tell us a little about maybe when you get started in archery.
Um, well, as a little kid, like most people, with fiberglass bear bows, anything I could get my hands on, generally arrows like from Ace Hardware, places like that. We used to, I guess, shoot them up in the air and see where they'd go, and half the neighborhood did that. And I seemed to be the only one that really kind of stuck with it and had a passion for it. Everybody else kind of evolved to, well, video games and other things that really never interested me.
Yeah, it's so what was it that got you intrigued in the archery aspect when you got started?
Well, stories from my dad, mostly of him and his grandpa, hunting in northern Michigan when he was a kid. He hunted with recurves, and well, he went away from it for a while and got back into it in the 90s. And well, I kind of got involved a little more with him and some of his buddies as he picked it back up. And well, he got into some arrow building and shot a lot of the 3D stuff, pretty much just in the state of Michigan. And now he took some whitetails. We've had in the past had a good land lease and done very well through the 90s. And, well, the land's harder to get on now anymore. It's more popular to lease and things. I have my own piece now. It's small, but well, pretty productive. So that's kind of what keeps me going. Opening day is still probably the most exciting day of the year for me. But yeah, I've shot my bow every day after school all through my childhood. And the first thing I do in the morning is grab a cup of coffee. I go out with my bare feet and pajamas and shoot my longbow.
Barefoot archery, huh?
That's what yeah, whatever it takes. And even in like January and February, the rough months in Michigan, I go out and shoot. I don't care.
Well, and if you're used to it, when is hunting season during the wintertime when it's cold?
Yeah,
And
yeah, it's good. It's good to shoot with your hunting clothes on when it's cold. Generally, the beginning of archery season in Michigan, generally it's in the 60s, and yeah, no, usually that's, well, I have a bug to go. It might be better to wait a little bit into the rut, but I never do. I get up and yeah, and I go immediately. Um, hunting a little piece, you kind of got to respect the wind, and I hunt state land when I'm not hunting on my piece, just to kind of preserve the animals using it. If I stink it up and go when the wind's not well, yeah, the deer quit using it. But I've learned that, and I've been somewhat productive in recent years.
yeah, that's kind of a key to remember, isn't it? That if you go to an area, even if it's a big wide area, it's a lot of land. If you go to the same place every time, and then next thing you know, they're going to learn your pattern, and then learn how to avoid you.
Yeah, we've got a lot of agriculture around me, and they use the funnel. My little property's a funnel from different bedding area and farm fields. Um, yeah, if they find my presence there, they'll gladly use something else. But usually usually when I take a whitetail, after I track it, gut it, and drag it. Yeah, it slows production down, and I quit seeing deer for a little bit after setting it up. You know, quite a lot doing that. But I go back and forth to public doing that too. But yeah, I've got a decent system that way now. State's not really productive for public land for me, other than rabbit hunting in the winter. I do pretty well, but I see a lot of people. But it's I have a good sense of humor, and I guess to be a bow hunter, you kind of have to.
Yeah. Especially when you're hunting public property, you've got to realize they're going to be out there.
That's for sure. And I spent a lot of time. Well, sometimes I set a stand and before daylight. But other times I go in before daylight and sit on the ground. I'm pretty used the area that I hunt. I know well. I can go in there and set up. A lot of times when I set up, you don't see things that are there until it gets light and oh, there's a stand there. Oh, there's a camera pointing at me. Whether I see people or not, their presence is there, and I know they were just there or just going there. But like I say, I
Right.
keep a sense of humor, and I just keep going for what it's worth. I enjoy it.
Yeah, there's kind of something about going out and sitting in a tree stand and just
Yep,
watching what's going on.
yep. I hunt probably 50% on the ground. My tree sets have gotten lower to the ground. Um, I used to hunt mm, 17, 18 feet. Um, my stand, my preferred stand in my little woods right now is at 10 feet. And well, the, I get pretty much got them patterned pretty well through there. My average shot's 10, 15 yards. And at 10 feet in the air, you're right on top of them. But that's
Yeah.
what I like. Getting close.
So is that way you kind of lowered the height of your tree stands? You just get a little closer to them?
Well, that and the trajectory of the arrow widens.
Yeah.
The vitals. It really does. It's just out of their peripheral vision is where I want to be, and the plane of the arrow is really perfect at that height.
Yeah. Now you using a recurve or a compound?
Longbow.
Longbow.
Yep. I'm
Okay.
shooting a Northern Mist ASL American style longbow or hill style longbow. 66 inch, 62 pounds at 28.
That's that's a quite a bit of a bow for a longbow to be pulling back.
I do a lot of push-ups.
Yeah. Yeah, because unlike the compounds, as you draw back, there's no let off. It just gets harder and harder.
Yeah, this is it. Um, it is straight handled, a Howard Hill style longbow.
Now, for our listeners, describe what a Howard Hill style is.
Um, he designed this bow. I know a little bit. I'll probably not be as accurate as a lot of people. I believe his heyday was back. Well, everybody's seen the movie Robin Hood.
Right,
He was the trick shooter in that. The shots back then were real. They didn't have special effects. He designed
right.
this bow, and back in them days, they didn't have glass laminations and things like that. The bow was wood. Now they've got well glass laminations. The bow's a lot sturdier. The longevity is there. The bow they just last. But yeah, this is like they call it. It's a semi longbow. It's not as long as what an English longbow would be. Generally, they're 70 inches is pretty common. Um, Howard Hill shot, well, extremely heavy bows. I I shoot 62 pounds, which is way more than I need. But yeah, the design of this bow, I've always really liked the looks of it. I've shot recurves on and off. Well, mostly through the 90s. I shot Damon Howard recurves and was well productive with them. Aluminum arrows. Um, now I build my own arrows. It's something my dad did when I was a kid, and I watched, and I always wanted to do it. So he passed away a handful of years ago. When he did, I bought all the equipment and just dove in feet first. So I've been building my own stuff ever since. But yes, this bow will keep you honest for sure. There's not a lot of room for mistakes. Um, yeah, it's all instinctive. You basically just got to do the same thing every time, just like with a compound or anything else. It's really it's a simple concept, but you can make it as hard as you want. I guess things get in your head like everything, it's
Yeah.
you got to try to keep that out. I have good days and bad days. I went to a 3D shoot here a couple weeks ago, and I didn't shoot very well at all. And I come home, and I just told myself, you just need to get your stuff together. And just shooting a sack outside in my backyard like I always do. Boy, it all just came back. It's all just a mindset. It's all this is.
Yeah. Yeah. We've talked about that a few times on here. Archery is definitely a mind sport.
Yeah, I get with my buddies and goofing around shooting 3D. I start to get sloppy and I start to short draw. And I do it with this heavy bow, but I also do it with my light bows. I just have to just get my stuff together and slow down. And it all comes back. I battle with a little target panic, and that's what that was. Well, shooting a lot of arrows does that to me.
Yeah. Well, with a compound and using a release, it's easy to get rid of target panic, just quit pulling the trigger. But with the
Yeah,
longbow or recurve, there's no trigger to pull. So it's going to be a little more difficult to get rid of that target panic in a situation where you come up with it.
it's really all just a feel. It's whether it feels right or whether it don't. Unfortunately, that feel is after you've released the arrow, you go, "Whoa, that wasn't good." You already know that wasn't good. It didn't feel right.
Right.
But yeah, if I focus on the spot I want to hit and draw with that, in my mindset, come to complete anchor and hold just for a split second and pull through the shot, it'll go there every time.
Yeah, that's something. It's a complete different mindset. I know with when I shoot my recurve, I have a recurve that I shoot once in a while, mostly for bow fishing. Have it set up for that. It's like I can't do quick shots with a compound. It's a different weapon, and
Yeah,
my mind is completely different when I pick up a recurve. I don't really shoot longbows, but when I pick up my recurve, my mindset's completely different. It's a different weapon. I shoot it differently. I'm not
yeah,
looking for sights. I'm not looking for, the peep sight, the kisser button and all that. I'm just going back to my anchor and going through the motions. I just look where I want the arrow to go. When
yeah,
I get a compound, um, I can't shoot that way. For me, it's just I just can't shoot instinctively with a compound. But a compound in my hand, and I'm looking for, of course, the anchor point, the kisser button, the nose, and the peep sight, and the pins and all that. And I go through all that, and it's completely different. Just like when I pick up a handgun and shoot it, it's
yeah,
different than picking up a rifle, which is different from picking up a shotgun, which is
yeah,
different than using a crossbow.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, each weapon has its own mental aspect that you have to go through.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time in the woods in the wintertime. I really don't have an off season. I spend a lot of time stump shooting. I shoot judos. I go out and shoot stumps at unknown yardages, and that keeps me pretty sharp. And yeah, you're shooting at a well. You don't want to shoot at a hard stump. I've got a lot of places I go where there's a lot of pine growth and things like that, where they logged.
Yeah.
And yeah, unknown yardages. I just pick a stump and put an arrow in it.
Yeah, and that's been, I think, for many years. If you want to develop your skill at judging yardage and hitting your targets, stump shooting has been around for, that concept been around for a long time.
You know, it's a very simple weapon, but your only enemy is your mind. That, that,
Right.
yeah. If you can keep things from getting in your head and stay focused, a lot of people have more of a gift that way than others, I suppose. But yeah, I battle, but it's just as simple as I told my wife. Um, I have a 22 in the safe that I love to shoot. So, but how often do I shoot it? It's scoped, and I know that every shot is going to be perfect. And well, it just doesn't. It's fun. It just doesn't do it to me. The days that I go out in the yard and really not shoot as well as I know I can, but the next day I I'm just on fire and right on. That's my reward. To fail and then drive through it and succeed almost constantly.
Yeah. Yeah. Every day is a kind of a challenge that you go out and shoot.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's nothing like having a whitetail in front of you, 10, 15 yards, and yeah, all you have in your hand is this longbow. Um, Keeping your mud together is all of it, and just telling yourself slow down. You have all the time in the world, and of course you got to wait until their eyes aren't focused where they're going to catch your movement. Because yeah,
Right.
66-inch bow in a tree is quite a bit of movement,
Yeah.
but yeah, once in a while they catch you, but once in a while it happens too.
Yeah. So what do you do when they do catch you out of that tree stand?
Well, just keep sitting. Just um, you there's several deer that use that funnel. I do get picked out sometimes sometimes from a distance if that wind swirls or something like that. They're a little bit forgiving, but once they've caught you like a couple times, yeah, you can forget it. But like the more mature bucks, there's yeah, I'm getting the doe usually. Um, the more mature bucks I've had come through right at daylight and catch me, and that's it. You'll never see that animal again. But yeah, the does seem to be. There's a lot more of them. I guess
Yeah.
that's what worked for me.
Yeah. A lot more. So if one catches, the one may not, but that one's going to come through and then keep catching you. And next thing you know, then any of them that are around them are going to remember to look up and
Yeah, the problem is if you get like a good mature doe in there and she catches you, she starts. Well, she won't leave you alone. She don't just run off a lot of times. She's got to alert every deer in the county that you're there and blow and then
yeah.
come back and they even come back. That's turkey hunting in that spot too. I've had the same thing where there's nothing coming through here with this deer doing that and they won't leave. I've yelled at them during turkey season to get them out of there.
Yeah.
Eventually people calm down after that. But yeah, I've gotten pretty decent at stealth and watching the wind. Um, yeah, I hunted state land last year for a week, and yeah, that's tough. I hunted mine 2 days, and the second morning I took a nice doe.
Yeah. I started out hunting a lot of state land and then when I started, there wasn't a whole lot of archers going out there. And then it started getting a little more, people started going out more and more and more. And
Yeah,
then you started having trouble with tree stands getting stolen or messed with.
yeah.
And then next thing you know, there's so many people out there that really doesn't pay to even go to some of those places anymore. But
I'm pretty mobile. I take my stand in on my back, or I decide to hunt on the ground. Um, Either way, them deer I've found are pretty used to small game hunters, and they're used to people moving around. I've watched deer avoid people on foot walking through where the hunter or the deer, neither one knew I was in there. I watched deer watch these hunters, and they wait till they get past, and they cross, and they're in there feeding. Well, a lot of times before light, and I've pushed them out of there. White acorns, they're in there feeding before light. I pushed them out of there. I learned, yeah, don't go in there. It's hunt it a different way. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's always an adventure. But yeah, there's a few spots that I like. Boy, I've been close a couple times on state ground where I've been about half draw, and just have them just catch a little bit of movement or a little bit of wind, and it's almost come together on state land a few times, but on state land it hasn't happened. But yeah, I take a rabbit out of there once in a while. That's a whole different. If you can catch one still, like in the Greenbriers when you're walking,
Yeah.
that's money. That's money. But boy, I tell you, running shots, I come pretty close, but boy, I've lost some arrows. But it's always good for a laugh, and I don't really care. It's good exercise, and it's better than sitting in the house all winter.
Yeah. And generally on like a rabbit, if you hit one with a broadhead, you're pretty much gonna kill it.
Yeah, I use pretty much what I hunt deer with. I use a lighter bow. I usually use a 50-pound or 45-pound bow. Um, Rabbit hunting, I've got a couple. And it's just because they're shorter. It's not really the poundage. It's just what I happen to have. But they go through the brush a lot easier than this longbow that I
Right.
hunt deer with. But yeah, I get it. It's really even hard to get a shot off at a running rabbit. Even there's a lot of them I don't even get. My bow pulled all the way back. It's already in the brush somewhere else.
Yeah. When they take off running, they go pretty quick.
But yeah, if you can catch one that thinks you can't see them, if you can get an arrow in them real quick. Yeah, they're done. They're staked to the ground. They're not going anywhere.
Yeah. Have you done any squirrels with your bow?
Once in a while I get one, and I try that preseason. I try to stalk them, and boy, if you can stalk a squirrel, you can do anything.
Right.
But yeah, I get up on them close. You just really, really got to move real slow. And yeah, a lot of times you shoot just under them and they jump up in the air. And yeah, I have a bad habit like a lot of people. If there's a squirrel underneath me, it's getting shot at. It's and it's getting a good broadhead shot at it.
Yeah. Well, I know I found that, if you're in, jeans and a shirt and stuff, they hide, they're hard to find, up in trees, even with shotgun. But if you're in full camo, you can move around, they just stare at you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They're pretty good at being just on the other side of the tree. They like, well, just like a rabbit. Rabbits, they like to know where you are, and as soon as they don't know where you're at, that's when you see them. Like I've been rabbit hunting, and a lot of times you find a place where they've got burrows, and well, or they're just under the brush. If you just stand still for a little while, a lot of times they'll break just because they don't know where you are.
Yeah.
But yeah, I went from shotgun hunting them when I was a kid a lot to, well, when I was a kid, I used to take my recurve back in the woods, and I didn't have a lot of respect for my arrows when I was a kid like I do now. But yeah, I would go out and shoot at partridge. There was partridge, there really isn't much now, southern Michigan, but I'd shoot at them in flight just because I seen Fred Bear shoot pheasants
Oh,
in video.
yeah.
You know, I never hit one of them things, and I never got my arrow back either. But I still had to do it because I watched them videos, and it inspired me to at least try.
Yeah. What it helps using the flu
Yeah,
arrows, that helps them because they get up and then they just kind of drop and kind of stick point down into the ground. They don't go very far, but
yeah, yeah. I shot some aerials at a shoot here a couple months ago, and I never really did much of it. They had flus, and they had a regular thrower like what they throw clay pigeons with, only they were foam rubber discs, and they have a line of guys, 8 or 9 guys, and they all shoot when this thing goes up, and it's moving pretty good. And I hit a handful of them. I was pretty surprised, and I was shooting this ASL that I hunt with, and yeah, it's really really a feat to hit one of them. It makes you feel pretty good.
Oh yeah, I've done that the last couple of years. Like Nebraska has their Missouri Valley Outdoor Expo up in Ponca Hills. It's up the north end of Nebraska, just right above like Omaha area, and they have that aerial archery, and I go out and I help them. I volunteer and help them with that, and they're not real easy to hit. You've got this big old disc, about 6-8 inches around. You're shooting at it with an arrow with a like a tennis ball or a little bludgeon of some type on the front of it,
Yeah.
and um, yeah, it's amazing how many get shot at and none hit.
Yeah. These have, when I did it, they had field points on them. But I found that if I swing the bow like you would a shotgun up and
Right.
wait for that disc to stop before it descends back to the ground,
Oh
and
yeah.
and hit it while that's just split second before it drops. But yeah, I'm swinging with it like a shotgun, and when you miss, I've found it's only by a fraction, like of an inch or a couple inches, but you hit a lot more of them doing that.
Yeah, because that disc will actually stop for a second because it's climbing and it stops climbing and it has to stop before it can reverse directions. But looks like you froze your video froze on you. But anyway, yeah, it can be a challenge to get one of those discs as they're flying because moving targets are not always easiest to shoot. And you can set those launchers up to send them across like it'd be a rabbit, so it sends it across the ground. And those there's no place for it to stop. It just keeps rolling. And that's a lot of fun shooting at those. And that's the thing, archery, you just find yourself a game to play with it. It makes it a little more interesting when you're out practicing. They have different game targets that you can get. They have tic-tac-toe, where to play that one, you would have, your two shooters, you normally play tic-tac-toe, you get 5 arrows. Well, you gotta get three in a row. And you shoot and you block in the same way. But let's say you shoot and you don't get dead center. Uh, the other person, if they can shoot get closer to the center, they take the square away from you. So that makes it interesting when you're shooting at a tic-tac-toe target. Then they have darts, like you play regular darts that you throw. That you play the same way, except it's enlarged a little bit for archery. And that's always a fun target to shoot at when you get uh, the dart. They have targets that have cards on them, so you can play cards or whatever and on there. But there's a whole lot of stuff. Well, welcome back. So for some reason your
Yeah.
video froze and you got logged off, so we just started talking about some different type of targets, and I was just
Yeah.
saying where those shooters you can adjust them so it basically just skims it across the ground as well, so
Yeah.
it'll be like a rabbit running,
Yeah.
and then the different paper targets and
Yeah. I'm actually designing a rabbit shoot for a shoot we've got coming up. Uh,
oh, look like having trouble with his internet again here. Yeah, so I'll rabbit you. We'll have to when he comes back on. We'll definitely get some information on it, and then we can put a link to that in the description of that shoot. So you're designing a rabbit shoot.
yeah, it's going to be with a Nerf football, and I'm kind of midway through figuring out it's going to be for the kids, so it's not going to be fast, and it's going to be kind of a short run. It's just going to be with an eyelet, so I can be behind the line and pull, and that football is going to go in front of them, so they got something moving to shoot at.
Well, that sounds like fun. When you get all set up, let me know. We'll put a link to it in the Arch Talk One on Facebook group to your event.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
in the group, I allow links to events and stuff like that. I don't allow people to get in and sell anything. But
Sure.
stuff like that is really good information. Anybody
Yep.
in Southern Michigan that has a kid want to go to it, hey, let's get the information out. And
Yeah, it's Michigan Longbow Association, Great Lakes Longbow Invitational. It's pretty much focused on kids, but yeah, it's a big event. I'm on council for that club, so I'll be handling a lot of things.
yeah, and any events that you have coming up, we can post them in the Archtalk 101 Facebook group. So if you're not a member of it, go ahead and join. If you are, then just watch for those events, and any of the events coming up, hey, if you can go support them, go support them because they're a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a great thing. I'm a member of 4 organizations, and it's pretty much the same people over the different organizations.
Your audio is breaking up really bad, but yeah, let's take the different organizations. I'm going to have him send me the information on. I'll put a link in the description. All those different organizations. So if you're interested in joining any of them, um, I was just saying, go ahead and send me a link to those organizations that you're a member of, and we'll put a link in the description so I can get a hold of you. And if they have any questions or want to show up at any of your events.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, my audio's going in and out. I got a guy running a zero turn down in front of my house right now. I don't know if that has anything to do with it or not, but it wasn't doing it until he started doing that.
Oh,
Yeah,
figures.
it probably isn't that. It's probably a coincidence, but he's gone now. Maybe it'll work.
Yeah, I know. It seems like when I'm creating videos outside for my YouTube channel, um, it never fails. One of the neighbors is mowing or airplanes that go flying over, because I hear we have a lot of crop dusters, they're coming over,
Yeah,
or somebody's running a chainsaw. It's like every time I try to turn on a recorder, yeah, somebody's doing something, making a lot of background noise, and it's a little hard to filter all that noise out and still keep your voice in, but
yeah,
you can mute the channel a little bit, but then your voice goes down. So yeah, it just seems like it never
yeah,
fails.
yeah. 90% of my life here, there's no noise at all. I live in the middle of nowhere, and I'm an eighth mile off the road. My neighbor's good enough to mow down through here, but yeah, he's doing it today.
Yeah. Well, hey, little background noise, it just proves that hey, we're not
It,
we're not in a vacuum.
yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, that's pretty much me. Like I said, I don't have an off season. I'm always shooting. I'm always shooting at something. I've got some groundhogs around here that I'm thinking about hunting a little bit. I got them living under my barn and that, but I go out and sit, and they don't ever come out when I'm
Yeah,
sitting. But
yeah, it figures.
that's just how it goes. But yeah, it keeps my interest, and as long as I'm chasing something, it's all good. There's always something to chase, that's for sure.
Yeah, I know we've got a shed out here that there's some animal living underneath it, and here, a couple weeks ago, I found one of the dead animals right outside of it for some reason. It had died outside the shed, and then I think it was yesterday, day before, I'm looking here, some animal going underneath the shed again. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah. The wife
nice.
does that. That groundhog goes through the front yard every day at 7:30 in the evening, but I'm always at work.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, yeah, she's got them timed.
So what when in your hunting career, what's been the most challenging hunt you've been on?
I would have to say northern Michigan. Northern Michigan's a lot different than southern Michigan. There's really no farms. It's a totally different kind of hunting. Um, Around here, you're hunting crops. You're hunting to and from bedding areas. Up there, it's a lot harder. It's just mature oaks. I try to hunt a certain, well, a river, because they walk the edge of it. Again, I'm trying to funnel them. That's really always kind of been a challenge for me. It's state land, um, public, but yeah, putting that together's been hard. But yeah, I would have to say, um, well, as a kid growing up, like I said, we had good leases. Just keeping it together on a whitetail, and learning to calm down, learning to slow down, um, has really been the key to succeeding, or, well, shooting over or under them. That's what we do. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's, through the '90s, like I said, my hunting land was, well, a lot. There was just a lot more of it to be had, and I was consistently killing whitetails, 2 or 3 a year. But that slowed down to me, well, now to about one. But you know what? I'm really thankful for that one. That's
Yeah.
probably really thankful. I don't take these things for granted. But yeah, I've had, like, hunting with hunting with recurves. In the '90s, I shot aluminum arrows and muzzy heads. That's what I could afford. Um, I pretty much, all I shoot's wood now. But yeah, I remember a nice 8 point coming out, and I was hunting an island, in the corn, and they moved either side of that island. If you happen to be on the right side, it was a good thing. But yeah, I remember, just hurrying up and snap shooting because I was excited, and I shot right over that 8 point, and that deer stopped, knew something happened. I knocked another arrow, and I said, well, I'm going to take my time this time. And I drew back, shot right over him again. That's just kind of, that's just, and then, the very next day, I had a doe come through there, and I put an arrow right behind his shoulder. That deer, it knocked the deer over practically, and they got up and ran, I think, 40 yards, and piled up out in the field right in front of me, like, just picture perfect. But I couldn't do it to that buck. I couldn't keep it together. But that doe, it was just picture perfect. But yeah, that was an exciting thing, because I had a buddy with me, and he kind of laughed. I said, I can't believe you hunt with that thing. And, well, he seen that. Well, if he would have been there the day before, he probably would have laughed at me. But that day, I put one on the ground in short order. He was pretty impressed. But it's always a struggle. But yeah, I've had the ones with the big horns rattle me pretty good. That's for sure.
Yeah. And there's just something, sometimes you get that buck in front of you, and I think it's because there's so much hype about getting the big racks, and you
Yeah,
get this big trophy buck that you're shot. And um my goal when I go out, bow hunting, is to bring meat home. And
yeah, yeah.
a doe works just fine. If a
It
buck
does.
comes in, I'm not going to pass it up, but I'm not going to, you know, nowadays I'm not going to wait, for a buck to come. When I
Yeah,
first started hunting, you only got two tags a year. That's all you could
yeah,
get, two archer tags a year. And so the first one I'd fill with the first deer that come by, so I'd generally
yeah,
fill it with a doe because we see a lot more does. And then I would only hunt bucks until December. Because ours run September 15th through December 31st, except for the 9 days during rifle season in November. Now it runs from September 1st to December 31st, even through the rifle season, but we got to wear orange during the rifle season. But
yeah,
what I'd do is come December, then I'd shoot whatever deer come by just so I didn't have an unfilled tag. But
yeah,
from the time I shot my first one till December 1st, I just hunt for bucks. And um, it's
yeah.
just okay. I'm just gonna hunt for bucks that I want to end my season too quick.
Last year, that deer I was super excited about, just because I had so much into it, and it finally came together. I bought this bow that I'm hunting with 3 years ago at a shoot. The guy that made it's from Alabama. Um, he said, I wanted to shoot one of his bows. I never shot a hill style bow before. And he said, well, can you shoot 62 pounds? Well, I used to when I was in my 20s. I don't know so much anymore. I'm kind of accustomed to 50. But yeah, that bow was way too much for me. But I told my buddies when I was shooting terribly out on the course with it after I bought it, that next time you see me, I'm gonna be hurt or I'm gonna be in really good shape. I started doing push-ups, resistance band exercises, trying to build my shoulders up. And I've moved into free weights. I've gotten pretty comfortable with this bow. And this last year, after hunting with it a couple of years, I finally pulled it off and took a deer with it. So, like I said, that was a battle for me, trying to
Yeah.
getting fit enough to be able to shoot this thing, and I did it. And that was probably the most exciting deer probably in recent times for sure. Just because I got it with that bow and I got it with a wood arrow I made. So yeah, that's well, it's you know it was the struggle. It really isn't a struggle. I enjoyed it. It was working towards something. It seems like if I'm not working towards something, well, I just kind of I don't get bored with it, but I'm always evolving and changing and doing things and tinkering and this and that. But yeah, I love building my arrows, and like I said, they're plenty lethal, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, they are. There's been a lot of animals taken with wooden arrows.
Yeah, this is what I'm building. That's a Douglas fir shaft. That's all hand crested. Um, yeah, this is the setup I took my whitetail with last year. This arrow's 700 grains. I'm using a 200 grain ace two blade. Um, yeah, that deer, yeah, blood trail was comparable to a deer that I've taken with shotgun slugs. It was pretty impressive. But yeah,
Yeah.
10 yards. That's what I like. 10 yards.
Well, you got kind of interesting cresting on there. For our listeners that don't get to see it, kind of describe what you've done on there because it's really cool looking.
Thank you. Yeah, I I've got a stand with a long dip tube in it. When I get these shafts, I get them from Sherwood Shafts out of Idaho. When I get these shafts, they come pretty straight from him. If I'm building cedar, I have to straighten them by hand. When I get them straight, I hit them with a green Scotch Brite pad like you do, you know, dishes with or whatever. It just kind of takes that. It's like sanding them, but not. It makes them nice and smooth. I dip them in polyurethane Minwax like you get at Menards or wherever, and I let that dry. I scuff that back with that Scotch Brite pad again, and then I've got almost like a little lathe that spins this. Um, I I hit that with a brush to make the lines, but I guess I'm getting ahead of myself. Before that, I put the crown dip on. This is well, True North paint. That's what I'm using. Everything else I'm using, I'm getting from Menards and like that. But I've gotten these lines to where I've gotten pretty good at it. I've got a lot of ugly ones that when I first started, it took a while to get good at it. But yeah, then I go over that what I've done because you can't touch one paint to another or they'll bleed. I
Right.
go over it again, then I scuff it again, and then I add another color to that other color. But yeah, that little lathe will tell you how straight your arrow is. If it's not straight, your line's not gonna. It's gonna look like garbage. It's gonna be
Oh
fat
yeah.
thin. But if you can straighten an arrow, you can do this. It takes some patience. A lot of it's figuring out what paint will work together. Um, well, here's the thing too: when you're fletching an arrow, is you know some glues work better with certain things than other. I'm using polyurethane. I'm using Duco cement like you get at the hardware store. That's what a lot of guys are using. It works well. For me, like Fletch Tight and things like that, they don't stick to this polyurethane very well. But it's taken me a handful of years to get good at this and build an arrow that holds together. You know, the feathers don't fall off and the paint looks good. But yeah, these are pretty expensive. Well, like all arrows are. But
Yeah.
it's probably taken me 3 years to make one that's not ugly. That's
Well, in describing the arrow, starting from the knock, you got a yellow knock, and
yeah,
then you've got what, about an inch or so of yellow fletching, and
yeah,
the shaft itself's yellow underneath it. Then you have a little white band with a little black, surrounded a black band, and what, maybe quarter-inch of black fletching. And then you have uh, the yellow shaft again, and then a white fletching that's, was that maybe 2.5 to 3 inches long, something
yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
And then and then you have a white band, and then more yellow, then a black and a white and a black again. And it looks like what you've done is taken either a yellow or a gold, real thin uh, line through each of the different areas.
yeah. That's the tricky part. You don't want to drink a lot of coffee.
No, because that line's got to be pretty darn straight.
These are the best ones that I've ever made. Yeah, these, like, if you go to a show and buy these, they're like $250, all
Oh
done up.
yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, it's been with a little cussing here and there. I've managed to figure it out, but you get a lot of help from guys on the internet are helpful, little tips and tricks. I've gotten better at fletching. They told me to go to a craft store and buy a little glue bottle and put your glue in that, and it just straightens your lines out a lot better than that. The glue bottle with the wide open like a toothpaste container.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little more finesse and everything's cleaned up and gotten to look a lot better. That's for sure.
So because you put a polyurethane coat over it, then normal Fletch-Tite doesn't like to stick to the polyurethane. And what is it you said you used for glue for the fletching?
Duco cement. It's a green tube. You can get it at any hardware store.
And is it like an epoxy then?
It's a craft cement. It doesn't really get very hard. It's not brittle. It's a little more pliable. That tends to stick to polyurethane well. I've never tried it on aluminum or carbon. But yeah, for my polyurethane top coat, it seems to really stick well to it. But yeah, again, that's a little hint from guys on the internet that have been doing it for a long time. They've paid their dues and spent the money and figured out what works and don't work. And boy, I listened to them. It's paid off a lot.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to ask for advice on there,
Yeah,
and 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 just try different things if they find something that works. Especially when
yeah,
doing something that's not normal, because normally you know, you don't, well, we didn't use to dip our arrows in polyurethane. That was pretty much just the wood shaft, and
yeah,
the Fletch-Tite worked just fine on it.
yeah. I found these arrows out in the lawn that I've lost and found them a couple months later, and they're still good with the feathers being destroyed, of course. But that shaft will still shoot. They're sealed um, pretty well. So yeah, the durability of them. Yeah, unless you get a glancing shot, they hold together pretty well. If you hit like a tree limb or something like that, and kind of glances off, you're going to have a little bit of a problem. But as far as hunting deer, or even, well, I've shot trees, at 3D shoots and stuff, and put a wood shaft through them, and they hold together a little better than you'd think. But yeah, well, I put these shafts through deer and in the mud on the other side, and unless you hit that bone, they do the job pretty well.
Yeah. Well, especially with them two blades, they do go
Yeah,
through pretty well.
yeah. These are what I've been using. They're like I say, they're huge. They're 200 grain glue on. I found them real easy to sharpen. I use a file and run a burr on the one side. You can just feel and clean them up with a butcher steel, and they'll pull the hair right off your arm. I mean, they're pretty wicked. But yeah,
Well,
they're fairly inexpensive.
that's what you want, is something
Yeah,
to get sharp.
yeah. yeah, I've gotten a little better at sharpening over the years. Like I said, just a file and a butcher steel pretty much does it for me. Yeah, towards October I won't have much hair on my one leg. That's just how that goes. Testing them, but I pretty much I've got a I've got a lot of hunting arrows ready to go. That I don't need to do anything with them. But like I say, I like to tinker and play with things. Sometimes it's a problem. Sometimes you're best just to leave things alone. But I'm just shooting this one bow now. I have a habit of mixing bows, and that don't work very well. My other bows, I'll find one one reassuring thing. If I start shooting my other bows, I shoot them terrible. And if I pick this hill style bow back up, it's my sweet spot right now, and I just need to leave it alone.
Yeah, you found the one that works for you and you stay with it.
Yeah, I took a lighter bow. I took a bare bow to that shoot where I told you I didn't shoot very well. I took that bow that I normally shoot well, but I haven't been shooting it. As soon as I got home, I got this hill style bow back out, and I was right back. I was right back with it. It just that other bow just didn't feel right because I hadn't been shooting it.
Yeah.
But now I give my buddies something to laugh at, anyways, while I was with them. So yeah, I wasn't shooting well, but it's all good.
Well, and the same, whether you're shooting, longbows or recurves or compounds, each, if you have more than one compound, they're going to feel different,
Yeah,
unless
yeah,
they're the exact same bow set up the exact same way,
yeah.
they're going to feel a little different.
This 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 draw weight feels a lot different to me than, well, it's 12 pounds lighter. That 50-pound longbow that I shoot, it just doesn't feel right. That that draw is heavy, but it just feels right. And well, with a heavier bow, I get it back where it needs to be. And like I said, I just pause just for a second, and everything lines up and release, and it's nice and clean. But yeah, in the summertime, I'll shoot that 50-pound bow, and I'll shoot it a lot. Once the dandelions come up in the yard, I'll take judo points and shoot dandelions out in the backyard for practice.
Oh,
That
yeah.
that judo point keeps the arrow from burying under the grass. It lifts the back of the arrow up so you can find it easy. But yeah, I go out and shoot dandelions when the spring when them come up. That's a blast. And yeah, I don't get any cheaper shooting than that, really.
Yeah. And if you shoot the heads off while they're still yellow, then it doesn't propagate very well.
That's it. Yeah, it's I've got millions of dandelions in my yard, and yeah, it's if you can hit that dandelion, you're doing something. But it helps you focus on a small spot.
Right. The smaller you're focusing, the better you're going to shoot, whether you're shooting, no matter what type of weapon you're shooting.
Yeah, yeah. It's well, it's just like taking a paper wad and throwing it, in the garbage can. It's really all you're doing. It's just focusing and yeah, you're kind of almost feel like I'm aiming with my draw hand when I bring that back to anchor that's lining everything up. But yeah, just that split second and focusing on that dandelion, I can usually hit them.
Yeah, that's a good thing. I know one video I was showing us, like, I actually took on my backstop that I have in the yard, and I picked a dandelion. I stuck it between the layers of the foam and was shooting at the dandelion. It's always fun
Yeah,
to shoot
it's
at them.
focusing on small spots right now. I have a lot of buckhorns growing in my yard, and weeds with a bulb at the top that's small.
Yo,
Them stick
yeah,
up. They stick up in front of my target. I'm not aiming at my target. I'm aiming for that little bulb that's the size of a pencil eraser. That buckhorn. If I can make that thing wiggle, I'm happy.
yeah,
That's that's a pretty good shot. But yeah, it's that's the problem with missing deer, like I was talking about earlier when I was a kid. The problem that well, a lot of people have, not picking that spot and shooting at the whole side of the animal. It's just not going to work for you. You've got to. That's where I said you have to stop and make yourself take the time, make yourself pick that spot, and draw fully and focus on that spot. And if you do that, That's money. But yeah, if you hurry it up, your mind's wanting you to dump that string and get it over with. You're excited, and yeah, you can't redo it. So yeah, you have to take the time to follow through.
Yeah, that's kind of the key to shooting good is just learn the process and get with
Yeah,
somebody that knows how to do it.
yeah,
You know,
uh,
a lot of times you go out and it's like, well, and going, I don't want to shoot against because they always win. Well, that's the wrong
yeah,
attitude because they're always winning. Well, what are they doing? How can I
yeah.
duplicate what they're doing? I want to do what they're doing. So let me study them and see what they're doing, or even go up and
Sure.
ask them. Because a lot of them will tell you what they're doing. They'll explain exactly how they're doing it, and
Yeah,
then just learn from them. And
yeah,
there's a lot of archers that if they're in the middle of shooting, you may not want to bother them. It's like, hey, they're full draw. Go say, hey, how you doing that? That
yeah,
wouldn't be right. But hey, when they're not in the middle of their shooting, go up and
yeah.
talk to them.
If you can pick, I've found one little thing out of somebody else's shooting. Everything they're doing isn't probably going to work for you. But if you try what they're doing and you can take one little thing that's beneficial to you out of that, that's big.
All right.
It's if you're gaining by that one little thing, you here's the thing: you don't want to change everything all at once. You only want to change one thing. Otherwise, you're not
Right.
going to know what what's working for you. But yeah, just the way, well, I'm shooting fingers, of course. Just the way that I'm holding the string, just the way that I'm holding my hand. Um, my hand is in the back is flat. If it's not, you tend to pluck the string. Um, my thumb's facing my pinky; they're folded in, and the back of my hand is flat. Um, I run the string to the first joint in my fingers. I used to use the pads of my fingers. Well, that's again that you have a tendency more to pluck the string. That deep hook is something that I picked up um, just from listening to the old boys, the guys that they shoot a lot better than me. That deep hook and that flat back of my hands really cleaned up my release and made me a better shooter.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said about where it places on your finger. The pads are one thing, but I think most of the time I was back at that knuckle just because it's so hard on the tips of your fingers to
Yeah,
get all those in there and have the string stay on there just that little bit further back gives you that nice big hook, and then you pull through. And if it's at the tip of my fingers, then when I come back my anchor point, I always anchor at the corner of my mouth with my index finger. And if the string is right there, it's like right against my lip, as opposed to being back just a little bit. So it's back behind it a little bit more. But um, that way it just seems to work better for me anyway.
yeah. I cant the bow slightly, and when I bring my bring my string back, that hand automatically lays right in against my cheek and middle finger back to the corner of my mouth naturally because my head's already cocked that way. It works pretty well. But yeah, it's something I experiment with a lot. And I shot throughout most of my youth with the pads of my fingers. And if you do anything enough times, you're going to figure it out. But
Right.
I found that this does work better for me, and it's more consistent. But like I said, um, with that, I picked apart what other people were doing, and I've tried everything they were doing, and I end up with one little thing that I've learned from them, and it's very valuable. So yeah, I'm shooting the way that this guy shot this way, but the way this guy shot another way, because in the end, your form is going to be yours and yours alone in the end.
Right.
It's you can't usually do exactly what somebody else is doing. It just with this, it just doesn't feel right. So you just have to find what works for you. And I watch a lot of videos and read a lot of books. And shoot a lot.
I know, way back when they used to teach, you'd come back, get your anchor point, and just open your fingers up. that was what they were teaching. That's what they
Yeah.
were doing. And
Yeah.
now you don't. You relax your fingers as you're pulling back and roll it
I'm pulling.
around your head, and much more consistently, scores going up. And I know when I first started shooting, a 300 round, um, 295, you're winning. And now a 299, you're losing. You're in last
Yeah.
place. You gotta
Yeah.
get 300. Even to get close, you gotta get 300, and then you still got to get 59, 60 X's, to
Yeah.
win some of those tournaments. And yeah, it's amazing. It's like, how are they getting so much better? Well, the equipment's getting a little bit better, but mostly I think it's more in the technique that they've figured out. This works
Yeah.
more consistently. Works a little better. And I know when I teach archery, I teach everybody exactly the same way, and I tell them why I teach this, and then we modify it to fit them.
Sure. That's it. Yeah. But yeah, like we were saying, with letting your fingers go at the corner of your mouth, if I do that and I don't pull through, I'm collapsing, and it just doesn't work. If I find that I'm pulling through my shot just a little bit, my hand doesn't move, but my hand moves backwards. That tells me that I'm pulling through my shot. It's what I need to do.
Yeah, because I see people do that, get ready to shoot, and they actually move their hand forward as they're opening their
Yeah.
hand up. So
Yeah.
now with the recurves and longbows, if you move forward a half inch, you just weaken the bow. It's not
Yeah.
shooting as much weight.
You've changed
So
everything.
yeah, everything. You change, the speed of the arrow.
Yeah.
Um, it's changing your aiming point. And I've also seen people that are shooting way too much bow because they draw back and they can't even get it close to their mouth.
Sure.
They're like their knuckle on their thumb, the back one is there because they're 2-3 inches short of their mouth because
Yeah.
they're shooting too much bow. And if you can't draw it back that extra amount, how are you really consistent? Because it's too easy to move a little bit left, a little bit right, and everything else. And
Yeah.
you probably need to drop it down about 6 pounds on draw weight. Get
Sure. Yeah.
that 2 inches further back. And but it's hard on, some people they say, well, I got to shoot this 62-pound bow.
Yeah.
Well, 40-pound bow is perfect for you. So you're trying to shoot the extra 20 pounds. And
It is.
I'll see it
Yeah.
on compounds as well. Uh, One, some of them are trying to draw it across their chest, which is using the weakest muscles you have, and then raise it up. Well, one
Okay. Yeah.
thing, not only is it using your weak muscles, but all you got all that movement to draw and raise. The deer can see all that movement.
Yeah.
Or they'll pull way up in the air and they'll try and draw and pull down. Well, how
Hmm.
strong is your arm pulling down? You're not very strong.
No.
And that's why I teach, you're pushing and pulling straight, bend a little
Yeah.
bit. And as you stand back, so now you're pushing with the forearm, you're pulling
Hmm.
back, you're using the back muscles, which develop really quick, much stronger than the normal, you know, triceps that you use and all your other muscles and your chest muscles. They're not as strong as your back muscles. So, a lot of that is all technique and being consistent.
Yeah. Yeah. When I've got this bow, um, yeah, my draw with this is like I was describing earlier with shooting them discs out of the air. I'm drawing as I'm focusing, but I'm raising my bow and I'm drawing at the same time. It's a push pull like you're describing. But by the time I get my bow to plane, it's pretty much 3/4 draw, and then I finish the draw straight back. But yeah, it's a smooth motion. But yeah, there's no holding it up in the air and pulling down. That Yeah, there ain't none of that. That ain't gonna work, especially with this kind of bow. That ain't gonna work.
No, you're using one way for those that are listening and watching, just take put your arm out and raise it up and just have a kid try and push up on that so that you can't pull
Yeah,
down and
yeah,
see how weak you are. Now just take that same person and push on them, and come straight out to the side, and it's amazing how much more strength you have. So why are you using your weak muscles to draw your bow?
Yeah. But yeah, I use that push pull, and like I say, I draw back as I'm raising, but the final part of my draw is straight back. It works well. It's well it's kind of a hill thing too. It's kind of they call it the swing draw. Um, yeah, it's it's pretty productive. But like I said, it's all in feel, and
Right,
it's a style that's comfortable for this kind of bow, and I've gotten used to it. And if it's not comfortable for you, it's not going to work well for you because it's not going
right.
to feel for you. But yeah, you draw as you're swinging up slowly and straight back, finger corner of the mouth, pause, focus, fire. Yeah, if you can do that, you'd be very surprised how accurate one of these bows is. Like I say, you can ruin knocks and hit small things like dandelions and things like that. And like I say, if you can achieve that, um, well, with this prehistoric equipment, that's pretty. It's it's pretty rewarding, that's for sure. But yeah, them days that aren't that way make you appreciate the ones that are a lot more. That's for sure.
Right. Well, and you can see as in your tree stand, you're not very much higher than a deer when you're out there, 10
Right.
feet up, 10, 12 feet up.
Yeah.
Um, as you raise that bow up, if you did one of those, you have it way up above your head and draw down. Now, not only have to bring it up past there, you got to bring it way up high, a lot of movement, and then draw and drop it back down. Where, like you're talking about yours, as you're raising up, you're part way up, you're starting your
Yeah.
draw. So by the time you all the way up finish your draw, you have very
Yeah.
little movement, and
Exactly.
that's why I teach the minimum amount of movement you can.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I have to raise my bow. I have to raise my bow anyways. So
Right.
every movement that I'm making is necessary. And I'm doing it slow and pulling through the shot. Yeah, that whitetail I took last year, like I said, it was only 10 yards. The noise that arrow made, I thought I'd missed, but it flew through the deer and into the brush on the other side of it.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, I climbed down, quite quite some time later. And my arrow was laying just on the other side of the run, covered in blood all the way to the nock. And there was well, about a basketball size froth of long blood, about 10, 15 yards up the trail. I was pretty elated, that's for sure. But yeah, of
Yeah.
course, I backed out and come back out a little bit later, and recovered it fairly quickly. But yeah, after the physical challenges of shooting this bow that's heavier than what I'm used to, I had to, well, instead of fitting the bow to me, I had to fit myself to this bow, and I wouldn't recommend that for anyone ever. I'm very stubborn, and my goal was to make this work. And yeah, if you want to battle target panic, that's a good way to do it. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's when you got to try and fit the bow, then there's so many things that you're thinking about and trying to work on, and you're struggling, and then you get back and it's too much weight for you, and it's like, ah, just let it go. And
Yeah,
then next thing you know, you draw back, let it go. And instead
that's
of
what your mind's trying to get you to do is let it go. But yeah, it's physical conditioning. Like I said, building my shoulders up. Um, I do incline push-ups with the handles, the 6-inch handles. Um, I I got in the best shape of my life to be able to shoot this bow. And like I say, I'll be 50 on Friday, and I'm in better physical shape than I was in when I was 25 because of this bow. But yeah, it's been a battle, but
yeah,
it's worth it. And I know I won't be able to shoot this bow forever, and that's okay. Um, I have others I like. I'll probably pick up another hill style bow that's 45, 50 pounds later on down the line to mimic the one that I have that's suitable for elk that I really don't need for whitetail, but again, I'm stubborn,
Yeah,
but yeah,
yeah. You're not the only one that's kind of stubborn sometimes.
yeah, yeah, 700 grain arrow, 62 pounds. That I don't think that slows that much really going through a whitetail at all. Pretty
No,
efficient, pretty efficient.
I know my first deer I shot, I was 20 feet up in the tree, and the trail to get over the bushes was 40 yards away. And I was shooting a compound 52 pounds.
Yeah,
And then with a full length 2117 with 145 grain muzzy on it, 4 blade muzzy. And when that deer turned around, that arrow, I think the fletching stopped it from going all the way out.
yeah,
Almost a clean pass through.
yeah. I've got a um 54-inch, 45-pound shrew longbow. It's just a little bitty bow. It's poppy, it's powerful, but it's 45 pounds. I'm shooting a 530 grain arrow, and I put a shot on 2 whitetails with that bow. And like I said, I had one of them where the fletchings held up in the deer to keep it from being a pass through, like what you said, and the other one drove through into the mud on the other side with 45 pounds. And well, like I've told my nephew, um, a broadhead is just like stabbing them with a knife. It doesn't make any difference how fast or how hard you do it. It's the cut that's doing the work. And if you put
Right.
that broadhead through the vitals of that deer, it doesn't matter how powerfully you did it. You did the damage either way. But yeah, a 45-pound bow is very efficient.
Yeah. And here in Nebraska it was 40 pounds added before 28 inches of draw length.
Same as
And,
me.
that was the minimum requirements based on, longbows and recurves.
Yeah,
And, the compounds now, still have, plenty more power, even though they may not be 40 pounds, but, that's the specs they had. And, if the bow is at 40 pounds at 20-inch draw length, you only have 25, you're not shooting 40 pounds. But the spec says if you drop back to 28, it's 40
yeah,
pounds, it's a legal bow.
yeah,
So draw length makes a difference, about a pound and a half per inch of draw length.
yeah,
So, that 3 pounds less is going to be, 4.5 pounds, so you're
yeah,
you're shooting, 35, 36 pounds. And, that's still legal. But like I said, it's more shot placement, than it is anything else.
yeah. That's for sure. There's a lot of younger people that I see at shoots that they can't draw. Well, they can't draw what a grown up can. They're taking deer with draw weights that are lighter than what you might believe. Um, yeah, it's shot placement, 100%. If you look throughout history, there's a lot of women that have taken whitetail size deer with 25, 30 pounds consistently. Um, Way more consistently than the guys shooting heavier bows a lot of times. They're good shots, shot placement. That's all it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And, once mechanicals come out, that's when it's like, okay, if you're not shooting the higher poundage, don't shoot a mechanical because it just sacrifices too much energy.
Yeah,
Those
yeah,
light pounding bows with mechanical just aren't going to penetrate. I've seen some that went in an inch or two is all they went in because they're trying
yeah,
to make, big cut. They weren't shooting, much weight. And, then I just not real fond of most mechanicals. Now, I'm not saying there aren't some that are good ones out there. If you're shooting, 60, 70 pounds, it really doesn't matter what you're shooting because you got so much extra energy over whitetail at the normal ranges, 20, 30 yards. We got plenty of power. I know mine I looked at one time, it said enough kinetic energy to kill a deer out to like 80, 90 yards, 100 yards, something like that. It was quite a ways out there. And, that was way back many, many years ago.
yeah, yeah. I'm liking the 2 blade. I've shot 3 blade a lot, and Well, back in the '90s, the arrow setup you described, that 4-blade Muzzy, that's what I shot. I could go to the store and replace my setup quick, cheap
Yeah.
than what I could for a wood arrow setup. Um, my dad wasn't making them then. They were expensive. And it's hard to replicate that setup. I could go to the store and get those muzzies, get that 2018 or whatever I was shooting, um, and set in the middle of the season if I needed a couple more, put that together. And well, I've killed a lot of deer with an aluminum arrow and a muzzy with longbows and recurves. Very efficient. It's you know, I I think the 2 blades might penetrate for me a little better, but I'm telling you, one of the muzzies through the lungs of a whitetail, they ain't standing on their feet long.
No. And I since switched to the 100 grain 3 blade. I've been
Yeah,
shooting that for decades, and when I practice with my broadheads, I don't use the practice blades because I got
yeah,
so many dull blades that I just not going to sharpen anymore because they're not as easy to sharpen as you'd think they should be.
yeah,
Because they're all, you pull them out and they're just not as easy to sharpen. So I got plenty of that are dull, and I just shoot the dull blades in my broadhead target and then go from there. Then I just pull those out and put the regular ones in,
yeah,
and then I'm ready to go.
yeah. Pretty much. I've got a lot of arrows that are for hunting rabbits, and like I said, I'm shooting the same broadhead. I shoot a lot of broadheads that way. Like you said, I don't even bother sharpening them for rabbits. They don't need to be.
No, no, they don't need to be.
But yeah, I'm confident with my arrow flight because I'm shooting them all the time.
Now, how do you adjust your broadhead alignment, or does it make any difference on your bow how
I
the broadhead is lined up with the fletching?
it's a lot of it. I believe is preference. I don't like to see my broadhead, so I have them up and down instead of crossways. When I build, I play with them a little bit. I don't line them up with my fletchings per se, but I make sure they're almost straight up and down. With the can of my bow, they're straight up and down to where I don't visibly see that broadhead laying side to side. I don't want to see my arrow. I don't want to see anything but what I'm shooting at. I find that a little disturbing in my sight window to see that broadhead. So I just kind of have them straight up and down.
That makes sense. Even with the compounds, if you're looking at your pins, you're going to hit wherever the pins are pointing.
Yeah,
You want to focus on the target, put the pins over it, and like you're saying there, it's like if you're seeing the broadhead now, that's taking your attention away from where you want it to go, looking at the destination, the arrow, because nothing else matters except the destination.
that's it. The problem, like with shooting 3D or shooting at an animal, yeah, if there's a stick in the way and you're focusing on not hitting that stick, guess what you're going to hit?
The stick.
That's every time. But if you can put that out of your peripheral vision and forget it's there, you're going to be more efficient for sure. And yeah, just not seeing that broadhead for me kind of helps that along the way a little bit. I don't need to see anything other than that spot I want to hit, really.
Yeah. Well, that goes back to, distracting your attention.
Yeah,
If you're out there, if anything, distracts your attention, then it's going to be something you're going to be thinking about. When you could start thinking about something else, what'd you stop doing? Stop aiming.
yeah, yeah,
Anything that takes you away from the focus of aiming is going to, well, you're going to miss because you're not aiming anymore.
yeah. And you've introduced something that into your line of sight that you haven't seen all year till now because you're shooting broadheads.
Right. Yeah. Because the field tips, you're not going to really see the tip.
No, that's what I want. I don't want to see anything. A lot of gap shooters, and yeah, they're good shooters. They see the tip of their arrow. That's what they're using. Yeah, they're lights out good shooters. They are. I've just never tried it. But yeah, that's a whole other can of worms.
Yeah. You got your gap shooters, and then you got your string walkers, and
Yeah,
um, For the first time I heard string walker, I'm thinking of, the Skinwalker, the TV show,
Yeah,
Skinwalker. Is like, what is string walker? So then I started looking around, and I found Jake Kaminsky's YouTube channel, and he explained what it was. Like, oh, okay. It just depends on where you put your hand as it points that arrow. And it's like, um, they're counting wraps on the string to go down and say,
yeah.
okay, I'm down 4 wraps where I need to have my finger. I'm down 5 wraps. And it's like, if I'm gonna go through all that, I'm gonna put sights on it. So I'm not gonna, you
That's a
know,
lot of math. That's a lot of, and it works great for them guys. Field archery in that they can, oh, that's 70 yards that my fingers need to go here. And
yeah,
yeah, it works. It's just, I guess for me, I'm just kind of into the nostalgia of things, I guess, and what I am doing, the style and what I'm doing, the way things look, like my arrows, and kind of try to mimic, the way they did it. Well, they did it that way. There's been string walkers and gappers for as long as there's been archery. There has been. I guess this is the way that I'm doing it. It's just different. There ain't no right or wrong way. It's just, I guess this is just the way that, well, I guess works for me, I guess.
yeah. And I don't shoot my recurve that often, but when I do, it's all instinctive shooting. I look at the target, raise my arms up, I draw back. I'm focusing on where I want the arrow to go, and then shoot.
Yeah.
I'm not looking at the tip of the arrow. I'm not, because if on the tip of the arrow, I might line it up. It's like, okay, that's where it needs to be. But if I happen to stretch my arm out just a little bit more, put more power in it, and now it changes.
Yeah.
If I'm collapsed a little bit more, or I pull back a little bit further, it's just, while I'm thinking about the tip, I'm not aiming. And for
These guys,
me, that just doesn't work for me.
these guys get really into this. There's multi-contact anchor points, a feather touching your nose with the contact anchor, like three contacts of your hand touching your face the same way every time. That's how they're achieving that marksmanship that they're achieving. Yeah, it's phenomenal. I just, like I said, my method's just, yeah, just different. That's all. I want to put that broadhead um, through the vitals, and that's good enough for me. It's just good enough for me.
Right. Yeah, when I shoot the recurve, it's just my anchor is just the corner of my mouth. But with the compound, I've got my anchor point where my hand hits my face, whether I'm using a handheld or a wrist strap, it's a little bit different. But I've got a kisser button that goes to the corner of my mouth. I have my nose
Yeah,
touching the string, and I have the peep. So I got my 3 points of contact. So I can shoot multiple different type releases depending on what my hand does. But I got those three I'm referencing off of, and that's just, my consistency in there. But I only do that with a compound.
yeah, yeah. Them guys doing that, pulling a recurve or a longbow. Um, yeah, there's. I've never, like I said, I've never even tried it, but I can imagine that it's got to be. Well, it's something to get used to. Like I said, it's got to feel right
Right.
too.
One more thing to think about when you get back to your anchor point. Say, okay, is my nose touching? Is the fletch touching? All this
Yeah,
other stuff where, the recurve is more of a quick shooting. You don't normally hold recurves and longbows very long.
no,
They get hard to hold real quick.
they, yeah, I can do it, but boy, I don't like to. And the thing of it is it tears up um, my shot sequence to hold that bow. I guess it takes away from my focus to hold very long. I, I'm already, like I said, aiming as I'm drawing. When that gets back, um, I'm taking that shot, or I'm starting that process over again.
Right. You're better off to let down and start over.
Yeah, it's kind of like a trap shooter, I suppose. Um, swinging with the bird rather than holding your gun out there waiting for the bird to line up with what you're doing.
Yeah, it kind of almost like when you yell pull, they
Yeah,
launch that bird and it's there. There's your time and shoot and it's gone. So um,
that's for me.
if you don't shoot, you got to yell pull again.
Yeah, that's kind of it for me. Um, yeah, if the animal cooperates, well, and their line, if their eyeball isn't looking at me, I can go through that shot process. Um, yeah, it's a beautiful thing, but yeah, I'm not pulling my bow back and holding and waiting for that deer to clear that tree right there. It ain't happening.
Yeah, yeah, that's something. A little different style of hunting and different things you got to think about. And
Yeah,
depending what weapon you're using is what you're going to do. And those that hunt with the crossbow, it's already cocked and locked and ready to go. All you can do is take safety off and pull the trigger. um, there you can afford to sit there and wait a long time for it. But you're not going to do a quick reload like you talked about the one time you shot, went over its back, and just loaded another arrow. You're
yeah,
not doing that with a crossbow. You get
uh,
one shot.
yeah.
There's
You're
no reloading because it takes too much movement, too much noise to reload.
sure thing. Yeah, you got to move your whole body in order to get that thing back again.
And then those that are using a crank, you hear the
Yeah,
click, 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 and there's no deer going to stay around for that.
no,
And if you're pulling with your hands, some of the new ones you couldn't load with your hands.
okay,
They,
yeah,
they wouldn't do it. You got the stringers on some you can load, but those take a little while to put on and get set
yeah,
up and pull those on. And some of the lighter ones that you can just grab your hands and pull, like the Excaliburs have a recurve limb on them. Those you can grab and pull if you've got the strength to do it. Um, but a lot of the kids, if you're out with a kid hunting, crossbows is kind of really really nice for them because they can shoot that heavier weight and they
yeah,
don't have to worry about trying to pull too light of a weight. You know, shot placement's still important,
yeah,
but
yeah. My first hunting bow came from a garage sale. It cost me $10. The Browning recurve, 50 pounds, and I started trying to shoot that bow at 11. Guess what? It ain't happening. Well, it did happen. It did happen, just not real good. That's all. It's what I had. It was about probably 15 pounds more bow than what I needed. Yeah, I missed a lot of deer with that bow, but it was still exciting to me, and I never gave up.
yeah, well that's kind of the key is don't give up, right?
Yeah, that's just it. Just keep pushing forward. But yeah, that 50-pound bow was terribly heavy for an 11-year-old. Yeah, like you said earlier, with the not making it, but 2 inches, to full draw. That's what I was doing. And I remember having deer, on the ground inside 15 yards, and shooting under or over them. And I don't care. That was still the most exciting thing ever, and it was
Yeah.
great. My first whitetail, I took on the ground out of a blind made out of hay bales in a fence row. The deer had its head down in the grass on the edge of a clover field, and again, probably 15 yards. I put an arrow through it with a 60-pound Damon Howell recurve, which was, yeah, more bow than I needed. But back in the 90s, traditional archery was it got really popular really fast. It was a trend, and well, a lot of people sold their bows in a short time, and their bows were, well, they were heavier than what they needed. So as a kid with not a lot of money, that's what I bought. But yeah, I took my first year with that 60-pounder, and yeah, full pass through. Yeah, very exciting. It was a spike. I think it only made it 40 yards, 50 yards. But yeah, it was like it was an opening night. But yeah, very exciting. But yeah, I've always shot more bow than I need. But I know better, but I still do it.
Yeah, when I was shooting a time, my hunting bow was set at 70 pounds and a target bow is still 70 pounds. So I found, that I actually shot better at 70 than I did at 60. When you got the new
Yeah,
bows with the 80% let off, just that extra weight helped me lock into my form and be consistent.
yeah,
And when I would shoot 300 rounds, the second half was better than the first half. but I was
Yeah.
struggling,
That,
shooting that many arrows, is a little bit of a
oh,
struggle,
sure.
but I locked into my form because
I
I had
start
to,
shooting.
because
um, when I shoot 3D with the 62 pounder, half the course is money and the other half is garbage. And it's because of what you said, you're fatigued. But for a hunting setup, it's just fine. But yeah, that heavier draw weight um, cleans up my release too. It's got no choice but to, because that string's leaving your hand. I don't care. And it's leaving
right.
your hand. Nice. There ain't no pluck in that 62-pound ball versus the 45. I found that that's a benefit, but yeah, short draws, the nemesis was shooting overboard.
Yeah, that's kind of a thing to remember for the new archers, start out there and don't over get your equipment, get what fits you.
Yeah, it's all accuracy and finesse. Um, yeah, 45 pounds is beautiful. A lot of guys are hunting 40, 42. A lot of guys 47. It's all in the field, like I said. Um, they're all good setups if you shoot them well. That's for sure.
Yeah, and some of the target archers, I know that they, when they were shooting when I was in the club with them, and they're, guys, they're shooting 35, 40 pounds
Yeah,
in target, because when you're shooting indoor target, who cares how long it takes to get there?
yeah,
And
yeah.
and the faster the bow, the more it magnifies your mistakes. So
Oh,
the
sure.
slower bows are a little more forgiving.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's for me, it's heavy bow, heavy arrow.
Yeah,
Them heavy arrows tend to make up for it a little bit too. Um, they seem to do it pretty well for me. Like I said, I'm not shooting long yardage. I 3D 25, 30 yards sometimes. At home, inside 20 for the most part. I'll stretch it when I'm stump shooting. Like I said, unknown yardages is a beautiful thing. It
right.
makes you, it just, yeah, it just makes you a better shot being able to calculate distance like that in a hunting scenario. But yeah, at home, my targets are pretty much depleted. I've got a ball of foam over here and a ball of foam over there. That's what I'm shooting pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, it don't take long for them to get shot up when you do a lot of shooting.
Yeah, I've got a bag and I've got just a hunk of target to shoot at. I don't buy expensive targets anymore because I just wreck them. They just don't last that long.
Yeah, and I found like on some of like your 3D target stuff, get some of that expanding spray foam and
Yeah,
squirt
that
in
works
there,
well.
and
Yeah,
it stops them, and it's cheap. It gets all shot up, squirt some more in there, and if you don't like it bulging out, just cut it off,
yeah.
and it gets shot up, squirt some more in there, and a can will last you quite a while, and you can patch a target for quite a while.
I've been using chicken feed sacks, one sack stuck with about 25 sacks. That works pretty good for a backstop. I'm shooting foam in front of that, but penetrating the foam, that sack stops them really well. You don't want your feathers going through that bag. It kind of wrecks them. But yeah, for a quick stop, it works pretty well.
Yeah, and I've had some before, just filled with clothes, rag
Yeah,
bag, and
yeah,
I had one, and uh, somehow I loaned it to somebody and didn't get it back. But from basically point blank, 70 pounds, shot a field tip into it, and two fingers just pulled it out. And
yeah.
so here, a few years back, I bought another bag. It was a cover for an existing target. As they get shot up, you just kind of put a new cover on it, and I just
Mhm.
started stuffing it full of old clothes, and that makes a really good target. Now I wouldn't leave it outside, like some of the other foam ones, but uh, those stop them really nice and easy to pull out. And
Yeah, I just come up with different ideas for things to shoot. Like I say, it's there's plenty of stuff. Like I say, the sack full of clothes, whatever it takes.
Yeah, and we all have plenty of clothes that we've kind of basically worn out, and
Yeah,
yeah, just make sure on the shirt you take all the buttons off.
yeah,
On
yeah.
jeans, you cut the zippers and any snaps and stuff off of them, and you don't have anything but cloth in it, and that'll work just fine too. And sometimes there's always scrap clothes laying around that you can get rid of and you don't need anymore, and blankets that are getting too thin and really ratty, or sheets, just stuff them in there. Anything to stuff in the in the bag, and that works good for a target.
Yeah, like I said, right now it's terribly hot, buggy. Um, Otherwise, I'm shooting in the woods, stumps and whatever
Yeah.
I can. If I find a shotgun shell on a path, it's getting shot at. Just things like that. But yeah, I'm not doing it when it's hot and buggy. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's no fun, but hey, sometimes you need to shoot when it's hot.
Yeah, yeah. I shoot, but I do it at home where I can run right back in the air conditioner.
Oh,
Mosquitoes, ticks aren't tearing me up.
yeah, that's good. Don't get out there too overheated.
Yeah.
So, so what would you tell a new archer that is thinking of getting into shooting traditional equipment?
Um, for sure, start out with a light bow, and I mean like 35 pounds. Um, Without your form, you don't have anything. If you start out too heavy, you're never going to achieve that form. A lot of times, if I start battling with target panic and things, I blank bail. I draw for form, shoot for form with my eyes closed. That's a good thing. It keeps you honest and brings everything together. With that 35-pound bow, I definitely would start probably with 6 arrows a day. Um, See how you feel the next day. Um, yeah, just start light, not that many arrows a day. Think about through the day, um, after them 6 arrows, what you might want to improve on, rather than just standing out there and shooting arrow over arrow over arrow over arrow, because as we both know, that's not going to get you anywhere. It's just going to get more confused, more fatigued, more tired. You're not going to put it together tired. So yeah, minimal arrows, minimal weight. There's a lot of good bows out there. A lot of guys are shooting Samick Sage bows, right, $100. I'm not really that sure, but cheap arrows, cheap bows. A lot of guys are starting out that way. There's nothing wrong with it, but yeah, start out light because you don't use these muscles for anything else but this, and you got to build them up. And a little at a time is how you're going to do it. Otherwise, you're just going to hurt yourself. But yeah, I think we all have the habit of just staying out there until you correct the problem that you have. That ain't always the best thing. It's kind of best to put it away, and I know that, but still, I find myself out there being stubborn.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that would.
yeah, I know there, a lot of problems you run into. If you're better off to shoot 6 arrows perfectly with perfect
Yeah,
form
yeah.
than 100 arrows incorrectly.
I've
You're
been
not doing
shooting.
yourself any good.
If I go out, it's getting later in the year. Um, I go out in the morning, I shoot one arrow. If it's good, I put it away because that's the only one that matters anyway.
Right.
That's that's what I've been doing. Sometimes I might follow up with two more shots, but I'm not shooting any more than three. I guess that I just shoot cleaner that way versus getting fatigued and overthinking things, letting things get in my head. That first shot's the only one that matters in the woods, so that's the only one I'm taking. I think
Yeah.
for me that's the best practice.
But when I was doing, 3D stuff, they say, "You want to warm up?" No.
No,
Well,
you don't
why?
get the
I don't
woods.
get to warm up. I don't get to warm up when I'm hunting.
Yeah,
The first shot counts. Now I do go through when I get into the tree stand. I like to draw my bow back,
Sure.
make sure everything is working. I can draw it back just fine and let down. But the next time I draw back, it's going to be at the deer,
Yeah.
or whatever I'm hunting, mostly deer. But um, you don't get the warm up practice when you're
No,
shooting at deers and animals. You get
sometimes,
one shot, make it count.
sometimes I warm up with resistance bands before I go out just to get my muscles working.
Right,
Sometimes I do that anymore. Well, when I first started shooting this bow, I was a little bit worried about damaging my shoulders and things like that. So I'd warm up with resistance bands just to kind of, well, just like anybody that plays sports. Um, like I say, I've been building my shoulders up now for a couple of years. I'm pretty confident with drawing this bow. It doesn't seem to be what it was when I first got it. You could really tell the difference, but yeah, I'd warm up with the resistance bands, a very positive thing. Just you're less likely to pull a muscle or something like that. And it just, it just feels more comfortable in your draw when you're warmed up. But I
right.
don't necessarily have to shoot my bow to do that.
No, you just got to get the muscles warmed up, and
Yep. That's just
and
it.
that's
Yep.
that can be a problem when you're getting out there. You're cold.
Yeah.
You're bundled up, and it's cold. And you walk in. You sit in your tree stand, and now you really haven't worked any of the muscles you need to work. And yeah, it can be a problem.
Yep. For sure. But yeah. Like I said, that warm up just in the house before I go is definitely enough. And now your bow is going to feel heavier when it's cold. It just always
Right.
does.
Well, and I think too, the cold, affects the way everything moves.
Yeah.
No matter which bow you have, it's colder. It's going to be a little stiffer, and especially when you get out there in, Michigan where you're at, you could easily be below freezing when you're out there trying to hunt.
Yeah. I'm going to hunt with a bow through firearm deer season this year. So that's going to be, mm, yeah, pretty cold. It's going to be a little colder than what I'm used to, but I'm okay with it. I've got merino wool. I've got good clothes. It's going to be all right.
Yeah, that merino wool is really good stuff.
Yeah, yeah. It's light. The thing too with shooting a longbow, you can't afford to have bulk on your bow
Right.
arm. You can't. The merino wool is a beautiful thing because it's thin, and yeah, it outperforms bulk for sure. So yeah, I can shoot. When I go out and shoot stumps in the dead of winter, it doesn't look like I'm wearing much more than a sweatshirt. And yeah, I don't hit my arm.
Yeah, I did that with my compound. I shortened my draw length's a half inch shorter than what my draw length actually is, because then I don't have to wear anything, cover the big bulky arm, sleeves on
Yeah,
the arms. And that's just the way I go. When I was going through learning how to do the shooting, go through the instructions, I was 29 and a half draw length, but I was shooting a 32-inch bow.
yeah,
So I had to change it, and then down to 29 and a half, and then now I shoot 29. So um, just a little bit more bend in the arm, and not much, but it works.
yeah. Certainly, yeah. But, but
Well,
yeah,
any parting thoughts for the day that you'd like to leave, or anything you want to do shout outs to, or
yeah. This has been a blast. I appreciate it. It's yeah, it's something I've been thinking about all morning. I've been looking forward to it. My family, um, none of them, the grandkids and that they've all been to shoots and they've all, you know, done things. My wife and that they enjoy it, but this is my passion. Well, my wife says this is what I talk about, so it's good to talk to somebody, like I said, that relates, and that's kind of what I get out of my shoots too, is like-minded folks that share the same passion. It's important. That's gotten to be as important to me, I guess, as what the hunting is like I said, the good people and like-minded. I get a lot of enjoyment out of that. I get a lot of enjoyment out of the grandkids and the wife shooting as well. But yeah, it's just rolled up into a ball. I guess it's all just a really really a good thing. But yeah, I also like my my time alone in the backyard. At the same time, it's just different. It's just enjoyable all the way around.
Yeah, it is. I know when I was challenged to do a podcast, I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, what can I talk about on archery? I can talk about archery all day long.
There you go. There you go.
And it's been fun. It's like, this is the third season for it. So, I've been doing this for a while. I think this is podcast number 182 or 183. I forget now which one it is, but I've done quite a few podcasts and talked to people all over the world, and it's all
Yeah.
interesting, and you know, some have a strong enough accent that's hard to understand. Um,
Yeah.
but hey, we get through it, and hey, there's always
Sure.
Google Translate if there's a word they don't quite understand, and like,
Yeah.
translate it.
That's what's interesting is somebody that's doing something different than what you are,
Oh
but
yeah.
somewhere. Yeah.
And then the thing I've noticed, worldwide, we're all doing the same thing together. And one
Yeah.
thing that I've noticed in common theme is if I see you with a bow in your hand or something arch related on a hat or gear or something, hey, go, yeah, instantly we have something to talk about.
I've run into that a lot of times just at work. And people, hey, you shoot a bow? And then they learn, yeah, quite a lot real quick, like you say, because I don't have a problem talking about it.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the things we don't have too much trouble talking about archery and
Yeah.
and it's kind of fun teaching new archers how to shoot and when you start off you need so much help that you don't have any questions because you don't know what you don't know yet. So
Right.
that's why it's important to get in with a group, like the group I start Arch Talk 101 on the Facebook group. That's all about helping people, and if you
Yeah.
have a question or a problem, hey, post it. If you're not sure what you're doing, take a video of yourself shooting, upload it.
Yeah.
We'll critique it and take a look at it. If you're having a problem with setup, there's guys like you that know archery in the longbow side and recurve side and compound sides. There's several out there. I was been a bow tech, and 2000 to 2004, I was at Bowtech for PSE. I went down to their dealer school, and so I learned how to work on bows. And some of the new ones, I don't work on the new ones too much anymore, but you know, it's all the same stuff. If you have a problem here, let's solve it. And there's a lot of people out here that to be glad to help, and that's why I started the group. After I started a podcast, I had some place to send them to help them out, and that's where it's there. And you know I don't allow you to advertise products. Like I get some join us. Like first thing I do is post, oh, here's this T-shirt to buy. No, delete, ban, because
Yeah.
that's not what the group's about. If you
Sure.
want a group where you can sell stuff, there are groups where you sell stuff out there. This is all just providing questions, and I would
Mhm.
say the only stupid question is one you haven't asked, because once you ask it, it's not a stupid question.
Yeah.
Now, if you
For
ask the
sure.
same thing a dozen times, then we're answering it wrong. We're not
Right.
answering so you understand it. We need to figure out a different way to tell you the same thing.
Yeah.
That's kind of my thought and kind of what I'm trying to lead the group to is, let's help archers out. And if you have an archery event, like any of the events that you put together, post those in the group. That's what it's there for, is to help archers out. Try and find a place. If you want a place to shoot, it's like, hey, I'm going to be in this area. Is there an archery shoot? Maybe somebody in the group says, hey, yeah, we've got a shoot here. And then we can post it. And, there's other options too, finding places. And, it's sometimes you can find the clubs and call them up and say, hey, do you have an event going on? I want to
Yeah.
shoot, and this is what I shoot, and just help you
Yeah.
out.
There's a 3D shoot in Michigan somewhere every weekend throughout the summer, if you don't mind driving a little bit. But
Yeah.
probably
And
that most
and a
states.
lot of places there's pretty much starting in February, March timeframe. There's pretty much a 3D shoot someplace. It
Sure.
might be an indoor, it might be outdoor. Until about September when archery season starts. then a lot of them don't put on any, 3D events anymore just because most of them are out there hunting.
Yep, there ain't nobody gonna show up. That's how
Yeah,
it is.
nobody's going to show up. Am I going to go shoot foam animals or real animals?
Right, right.
Yeah, I'm going to go shoot the real animals.
Yeah.
I can eat them. I can't eat the foam. So, yeah, it's been great talking with you, and I'm sure we'll keep in touch. You're
Sure.
in the group, so any of my listeners, or anybody watching, you have any questions for you, want to just post a question.
Yep.
If there's something we talked about that you want more information on, hey, comment on the video. You know, we'll try and answer any questions we can, and if we can't answer it, I'm sure we can find somebody that can, because there's a lot of knowledge around here that we can tap into.
All right. Thanks a lot. It's been fun. I appreciate it.
Yeah, my name is Roy Canterbury. I've been your host today on Arch Talk 101 with Paul Newton, and we will catch you on the next one. Remember, you can listen to the podcast on Spotify and places like that, plus audible.com. You can watch the video in the Facebook group, Arch Talk 101, as well as my YouTube channel, Learn to Fix It Yourself. And we'll catch you on the next one.